Season 1 of Game of Thrones introduces the Seven Kingdoms of Westeros, ruled by King Robert Baratheon. Following the death of Robert's hand, Jon Arryn, Robert leads a convoy to the northern capital of Winterfell to reunite with his old friend Ned Stark. The friends fought together years ago in a battle that has become known as Robert's Rebellion. The former king of Westeros, Daenerys Targaryen, had gone mad and began brutally murdering innocent lords and citizens who objected to his rule. Robert, Ned, and their loyal mentor Jon Arryn helped lead a civil war to overthrow the Mad King, and the noble Ned Stark rejected the crown to allow Robert to rule instead. Now, accompanying Robert to Winterfell is his conniving wife, Queen Cersei, their pompous teenage son, Prince Joffrey, their youngest children, Myrcella and Tommen, Cersei's twin brother, the skilled fighter Jaime Lannister, and her younger brother, the drunken dwarf Tyrion Lannister. Upon arriving in Winterfell, Robert and Ned warmly reunite before Robert offers his old friend to be named the new Hand of the King, and for their families to be united through the marriage of Prince Joffrey to Ned's eldest daughter Sansa. Ned is hesitant to accept these honors and leave behind his family home of Winterfell, and his decision is made even more complicated when his wife Catelyn comes to the conclusion that the Lannister family and its patriarch Tywin have begun scheming against the throne and were responsible for Jon Arryn's death. But despite Catelyn's warnings and his own reservations, Ned accepts Robert's offer, wanting to dutifully honor his king's wishes. In addition to Ned and Catelyn, the Stark family includes their eldest son, the equally honorable and strong Robb, the naive wannabe Princess Sansa, Arya Stark, who cares less about fancy dresses than she does swords and bows, the adventurous boy Bran, the youngest son Rickon, and Ned's bastard son Jon Snow. Following Robert's rebellion, Ned came home to Catelyn with a child he fathered out of wedlock. Catelyn has since hated the boy, who has forever been the sole blemish on Ned's spotless, honorable legacy. Each Stark child also has their own direwolf companion. Also living amongst the Starks is their ward, Theon Greyjoy. Theon has technically been a hostage of Ned to ensure his father, Balon Greyjoy of the Iron Islands, remains loyal to King Robert. But instead of treating Theon like a prisoner, Ned has welcomed him into their family, leading to Theon and Robb becoming best friends. Before the king's convoy departs Winterfell to return to the capital of King's Landing, the young Bran Stark accidentally catches Queen Cersei and her twin brother Jaime in the midst of having sex. To protect their forbidden love, Jaime pushes Bran out of a window in an attempt to kill him. Instead, the boy falls into a coma. As the convoy departs, Ned leaves Winterfell behind, accompanied by his daughters Sansa and Arya. As he says goodbye to his sisters, Jon Snow gives Arya her own sword, which she names Needle. As Catelyn tends to the injured Bran, an assassin attempts to kill him, but Bran is saved by his direwolf Summer. Catelyn is sure that the Lannisters are behind the attack, and her old friend and admirer, Peter Littlefinger Baelish, informs her that Tyrion Lannister is behind the attack, leading to Catelyn capturing the imp. When Bran finally wakes up, he has no memory of his fall and is saddened to discover that he has permanently lost the ability to walk. Meanwhile, Jon Snow decides to join the Night's Watch, a group of men who protect the Wall, a giant icy barrier in the north intended to keep savage wildling tribes and the mythical White Walkers out of Westeros' seven kingdoms. The Night's Watch has fallen in stature from its original glory days and now consists mostly of criminals who choose to take the black instead of being sentenced to death. Despite one of the Night's Watch's main missions being to stave off White Walkers, most believe that they are just myths to scare children. At the Wall, Jon is joined by his direwolf Ghost and his uncle, the highly respected Night's Watch Ranger, and Jon's own beloved mentor, Benjen Stark. Jon is immediately an outcast amongst the Watch and struggles to adjust to the Watch's many rules and oaths, which includes never being allowed to marry. Jon struggles even more when Benjen mysteriously goes missing while on a mission north of the Wall. Despite this, Jon manages to stand up for himself and earn the respect of his fellow recruits. He becomes a trusted ally to the Night's Watch's Lord Commander Jeor Mormont, a devoted mentee to the Wall's Maester Aemon, and even befriends fellow recruits Samwell Tarly, Grin, and Pip. Jon and Sam soon discover that despite the skepticism of their fellow recruits, the White Walkers are very real and have the ability to transform their victims into zombie whites. Jon saves Mormont from a white attack, and in return, the Lord Commander gifts Jon with his family sword Longclaw, made out of the highly valuable and rare material Valyrian steel. one of the only objects that can kill a White Walker. As Ned travels with his daughters to King's Landing, Sansa learns that her dream come true of marrying a prince isn't such a happy ending when the prince is Joffrey Baratheon. The sadistic child loves to torture and torment, even forcing his bodyguard, the physically imposing Sandor Clegane, nicknamed the Hound, to kill one of Arya's innocent friends. When Arya's direwolf Nymeria attacks Joffrey, Cersei orders the animal to be put down. Arya releases Nymeria into the wild, prompting Cersei to have Sansa's innocent wolf Lady put down instead. Upon arriving in King's Landing, Ned Stark joins the King's small council and is thrust into an uncomfortably tense political environment. Ned discovers that Westeros is in massive debt due to Robert's extravagant spending, and political rivals lie in wait to make their own moves against the king. Small council members Littlefinger and Varys are arch rivals due to their equally manipulative ways, scheming behind everyone's backs and willing to work with or betray anyone to advance their own machinations. One of Robert's council's most ruthless moves is their plans to assassinate the young Daenerys Targaryen. Across the Narrow Sea on the continent of Essos are the fugitive siblings Viserys and Daenerys Targaryen, the sole remaining heirs of the Mad King, who were saved and snuck out of Westeros' infants by Targaryen loyalists during Robert's rebellion. Now Viserys has come of age and is plotting his return to Westeros to reclaim his family's rightful place on the Iron Throne. To aid in his quest, Viserys marries his sister Daenerys to Khal Drogo, leader of the barbaric Dothraki. This political marriage would give Viserys the army necessary to fight off Robert's defending army. As a wedding present, Daenerys is gifted 3 fossilized dragon eggs, as a symbol of her family's status as powerful riders when dragons once existed. Daenerys first finds life amongst the Dothraki difficult, as they are savage and violent people, but learns to assert her own power as a woman and softens Drogo and grows to genuinely care for him, becoming pregnant with his child. Daenerys is also befriended by Ser Jorah Mormont, the disgraced son of Lord Commander Jeor Mormont, who was banished from Westeros for slave trading. Despite secretly serving as a spy for Robert's council, Jorah grows to genuinely care for Daenerys and becomes her most trusted ally. When Viserys grows impatient with bringing the Dothraki army to Westeros, he antagonizes Daenerys and threatens her unborn child, prompting Drogo to immediately give him the crown he so desperately wants by pouring molten gold onto his head and killing him. Drogo and the Dothraki then pledge their loyalty to Daenerys, with Drogo wanting his and Daenerys' son to be the heir to the Iron Throne. When Drogo falls gravely ill from a minor infected injury, Daenerys ignores Jorah's advice and seeks out the help of an enslaved witch named Miri to use blood magic to save her husband. But Miri, who has suffered for years at the hands of the Dothraki, betrays Daenerys. Drogo lives but in a permanent vegetative state, and Daenerys' son is tragically stillborn. Back in King's Landing, Jaime discovers that Tyrion has been captured by Catelyn. Despite constant ridicule from his family, Tyrion has always found comfort in his older brother, and Jaime is furious at Tyrion's capture. In retaliation, Jaime attacks Ned and mercilessly slaughters his loyal men. Ned and Jaime have long had a rivalry, as Jaime dishonorably killed the Mad King, despite being a sworn member of his loyal Kingsguard. Ned, of course, had fought in Robert's rebellion to overthrow the king himself, but had pledged no such oath. But Jaime has his own moral code, and only broke his oath to kill the king after discovering that Aerys had amassed large quantities of wildfire that he planned to use to destroy his own people. Fortunately, Tyrion is a highly crafty individual who manages to ensure his own release by demanding a trial by combat. Tyrion hires a local sellsword Bronn to be his champion in a fight to the death. Bronn defeats Catelyn's champion, resulting in Tyrion's release and Bronn receiving a hefty payday. The two unlikely friends then travel together to return to King's Landing. As Ned attempts to help Robert steer Westeros back on track, he is aided by Littlefinger in uncovering the truth behind Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen's parentage. Robert has fathered many bastard children, including the low-class armorer Gendry, and they all feature the typically dark hair of a Baratheon, whereas all of Robert's children with Cersei share the typical Lannister blonde hair. This leads Ned to uncover the truth that Jaime is the true father of Cersei's children, illegitimizing them as heirs to the Baratheon throne. As Ned goes to confront Cersei over her incestuous disloyalty, she orchestrates Robert being mortally wounded by a hunting accident. As Robert dies, he names Ned as regent of the realm until Joffrey comes of age. But after Robert dies, the honorable Ned alerts Robert Robert's oldest brother Stannis to have him take the Iron Throne as its rightful heir. Cersei works with the duplicitous Littlefinger to have Ned arrested for treason. In Winterfell, Robb Stark learns of his father's wrongful imprisonment and rallies the men of the North to fight the scheming Lannisters. As he rides south with Theon Catelyn and his army, he leaves Bran as Lord of Winterfell, alongside Rickon, their direwolves, the strong but simple Hodor, and the wildling Osha, who has snuck past the wall but become a loyal ally to the Starks. On their journey south, Catelyn aligns the Northern Army with Lord Walder Frey, allowing them to pass through his land in exchange for Robb agreeing to marry one of Walder's daughters in a political marriage. Robb reluctantly agrees and later proves his strength in battle against the Lannisters, capturing Jaime Lannister himself. As the season comes to a close, the honorable Ned Stark chooses to forsake the truth and proclaim Joffrey as Robert's rightful heir, in an effort to save his daughters. Unfortunately, the unhinged Joffrey orders Ned to be executed, to the horror of the watching Sansa, Arya, and even Cersei. Sansa is forced to continue her engagement with her father's killer, while Arya is escorted out of the city by an old ally of Ned named Yoren. Upon learning of Ned's death, Jon is devastated and attempts to flee the Night's Watch to join Robb in battle, but his new friends convince him not to break his oath. Instead, Jon joins Lord Commander Mormont and a small party to travel north of the Wall in search of the missing Benjen. The North secedes from the Seven Kingdoms and proclaims Robb Stark as their new king. But the escalating tensions in Westeros is only the beginning, as across the narrow sea in Essos, Daenerys puts her husband out of his misery and burns a funeral pyre for Drogo and their son, placing the dragon eggs amongst the flames. Daenerys then walks into the flames and, proving her power as a Targaryen, she survives and the fossilized eggs miraculously hatch. Daenerys now has 3 dragons named Viserion, Drogon, and Rhaegal, and a loyal army willing to follow her into battle. She is their queen, their Khaleesi, the mother of dragons. I want to cut in real quick and tell you about this video's sponsor, FlexiSpot. Whether you're working from home or in the office, it's time to evolve your furniture. FlexiSpot makes desks, chairs, recliners, sofas, and more like you've never seen before. I just got an E7 Plus standing desk that allows me to completely alter my workspace with the push of a button. I can sit down and relax in my office chair while editing a video, or I can effortlessly adjust the height and make it a standing desk, giving me the ability to move around and increase my blood flow. One of the most impressive things about FlexiSpot desks is how stable and sturdy they are. My new E7 Plus desk can hold 440 pounds while lifting and 540 pounds while static. These desks are super user-friendly. You can make micro adjustments to the height, preset different heights for sitting and standing, and it's super adaptable in allowing you to add different accessories like drawers, USB ports, and monitor mounts. All of these great features at an incredibly affordable price. You're gonna get your money's worth. I mean, there's a reason they've been named the #1 standing desk by TechRadar 2 years in a row. There are so many benefits to using a standing desk, like lowering your risk for heart disease, reducing back pain from having to sit in a chair all day, and boosting your mood, energy level, and productivity. FlexiSpot provides all kinds of standing desks to meet your demands. If you prefer a rock-solid stability standing desk, then the E7 Plus is your top choice. If you want a premium standing desk for daily use, you can check out their E7 and E7 Pro C frame. And if you're on a limited budget, you can choose their E5 model. So don't miss out on their amazing brand day sale. And you can unlock even more savings by using my exclusive promo code in the description below. Just click the FlexiSpot link and enjoy some fantastic discounts. Thanks again to FlexiSpot for sponsoring this video, and thanks to you for watching. Now let's get back to the recap. In Season 2 of Game of Thrones, political unrest begins to take hold in Westeros following Ned Stark's death and the rumors that King Joffrey is a bastard, and therefore not the rightful heir to the Iron Throne. As Lannister patriarch Tywin ventures off to make political alliances for his family, he reluctantly places his much-hated son Tyrion as Hand of the King. Meanwhile, Joffrey calls for the killing of all of Robert Baratheon's bastards, leaving no evidence of his strong brown-haired genes. Amidst the massacre, only one of Robert's bastards, Gendry, manages to escape, joining Arya's party on their journey to the Night's Watch. That party is attacked by Lannister forces, leading to most of Arya's new friends being killed, and her beloved sword and needle being stolen by a soldier named Polliver. Arya, Gendry, and their new friend Hot Pie are captured and taken to the castle Harrenhal, where Arya helps free a mysterious prisoner named Jaqen H'ghar escape his cage. Jaqen proves himself to be an unnaturally skilled killer, murdering Lannister guards to ensure his, Arya, Hot Pie, and Gendry's escape. Jaqen then offers to teach Arya his skills by inviting her to join the Faceless Men Guild across the Narrow Sea in Braavos, leaving her with a coin that would help her obtain safe passage should she ever take him up on his offer. There are now many challengers for the Iron Throne, threatening to split the allegiances of the Seven Kingdoms apart in what becomes known as the War of the Five Kings. Stannis Baratheon is Robert's oldest brother and therefore rightful heir, but he is very unpopular amidst most of the realm. And so, Stannis' younger brother Renly also makes his own claim for the throne, using his charisma to win the Baratheon loyalists and many other important houses to his cause. Serving alongside Renly on his Kingsguard is Brienne of Tarth, who falls in love with her king due to him allowing a female to hold such an honorable position. Renly strengthens his political power by marrying Marjorie of the politically powerful House Tyrell. But this is just a political marriage, as Renly is secretly in a relationship with Marjorie's brother Loras. With Renly gaining power, Stannis Baratheon turns to the Lord of Light for support after being seduced by the Red Priestess Melisandre. Melisandre uses her dark magic to birth a shadow creature that assassinates Renly. Brienne is accused of the murder but is protected by Catelyn, leading Brienne to pledge her loyalty to the Lady Stark and swear an oath to return her daughters to her. Aside from the Tyrells, all of Renly's loyal bannermen join Stannis, making him the most formidable threat to Joffrey's hold on the Iron Throne. Despite this victory, Stannis' most loyal ally, Davos Seaworth, grows disturbed by his king's newfound devotion to dark magic and a vengeful god. Elsewhere, as Robb Stark rallies the North to his cause, he sends his friend Theon to forge an alliance with his father Balon and House Greyjoy. Balon rejects Robb's proposal and stakes his own claim for the Iron Throne. Unfortunately, despite being taken in by the Starks at a young age, Theon wants nothing more than to earn his real father's respect, and so he betrays Robb to stand by his family's Ironborn army. To impress his father, Theon schemes to take control of Winterfell while it is unprotected. Osha and Hodor flee with Bran and Rickon to protect them from the Ironborn invasion, journeying to the Wall to find solace with Jon and the Night's Watch. When Theon fails to find and capture them, he murders innocent farm boys and burns their bodies, proclaiming them to be Bran and Rickon. Theon's sister Yara arrives to inform Theon that Balon doesn't care about Winterfell, meaning his treacherous betrayal of the Starks was for nothing. As Theon's men largely abandon him, Robb's newest trusted ally Roose Bolton sends an army led by his son Ramsay to take back Winterfell. Unfortunately, Ramsay is a sadistic young man who disobeys his orders by sacking Winterfell, flaying all of the remaining Ironborn alive, and capturing Theon to be his own personal subject of torture. As Robb leads his army to many victories across Westeros, he comes at odds with his mother over their various strategic decisions. Robb becomes furious at Catelyn when she releases Jaime into the care of Brienne, tasking her to trade the Lannister for the safe return of Arya and Sansa. Meanwhile, Catelyn becomes worried of the future consequences when Robb falls in love with and marries a nurse named Talisa, going back on his oath to marry a daughter of Walder Frey. In King's Landing, Tyrion tries to use his position as Hand of the King to enact positive change throughout Westeros and protect his family from the various impending enemy forces. He promotes his new friend Bronn to commander of the City Watch. He kicks Grand Maester Pycelle off the Small Council upon discovering that he is secretly a puppet for Cersei. To protect Sansa from Joffrey's ire, Tyrion employs his secret lover Shae to be her new handmaiden. When Tyrion discovers that Cersei is having a new incestuous affair with their cousin Lancel, he forces the young man into becoming his new informant. Lancel informs Tyrion that Joffrey had devised a plan to use the Mad King's stockpile of wildfire against Stannis' forces, but when Bronn doubts the viability of Joffrey's plan, Tyrion confiscates the wildfire to devise a battle tactic of his own. And for devotion to his family or to spite his sister, Tyrion sends the young Myrcella to the Kingdom of Dorne for a political marriage that would see her far away from the threat of the impending war. As Stannis sails his army to King's Landing to take the Iron Throne by force, Tyrion enacts his master plan, trapping Stannis' fleet of ships in Blackwater Bay and destroying them all with wildfire, killing many Baratheon men, seemingly including Stannis' loyal hand Davos. Stannis' men are then forced to continue their assault on land, where the Hound leads the Lannister defense. Seeing the devastation of the wildfire triggers the Hound, who has had a fear of fire since having his face burned as a child by his sadistic brother, the Mountain. The Hound flees the battle and finally tells off Joffrey for his sadistic ways. Sansa attempts to manipulate her evil betrothed into leading the battle himself, but the young Joffrey is too scared to lead his men. And so, the unassuming and overlooked Tyrion is forced to step up to protect his family, rallying the Lannister forces and heroically leading them into battle. Unfortunately, Tyrion is betrayed by one of his own men, as a Kingsguard slices him in the face before being killed by Tyrion's own loyal and unassuming squire, Podrick Payne. As the critically injured Tyrion begins to bleed out, with all hope seemingly lost, his father Tywin arrives with reinforcements with the Lannisters' newest allies, House Tyrell. They quickly turn the tide of the battle, forcing Stannis to retreat. Following the battle, Joffrey abandons Sansa to instead become betrothed to Margaery Tyrell, while Tyrion's heroic deeds are ignored, and Tywin reassumes the mantle as Hand of the King. But all of the bloodshed and political machinations could be for nothing due to events happening outside of King's Landing. In Essos, Daenerys faces harsh conditions as she tries to gather the funds needed to buy a fleet that could transport her Dothraki army to Westeros. Famine and villainous rivals take the lives of many of her loyal men, leading her to consider a marriage proposal from the incredibly wealthy Karth Council member Xaro. Xaro promises to use his wealth to help force her onto the Iron Throne, but Jorah convinces her to instead trust in herself to win the Westerosi people's support. Xaro then aligns with the warlock Pyat Pri to steal Daenerys' infant dragons and take over as the King of Karth. Daenerys successfully saves her dragons, who burn Pyat Pri alive, and then locks the traitorous Xaro in his own vault, stealing his money to task Jorah with buying them a ship. Meanwhile, Lord Commander Mormont leads his ranging party of Night's Watch men further north beyond the Wall. Alongside Jon in the party are his friends Sam, Grin, and Ed. While seeking refuge with a man named Craster, Jon and Sam discover that he is marrying his daughters and sacrificing their sons to the White Walkers to help bolster their army. Sam meets and instantly falls in love with one of Craster's pregnant daughters, Gilly, promising to one day free her from her father's villainy. The Night's Watch are also growing concerned of the growing wildling forces, who have become more organized and disciplined under their new king, Mance Rayder. Jon chooses to leave the comfort of his friends to venture forth in a smaller party, led by the ranger Qhorin Halfhand, to stealthily take out the nearby wildling camps to make safer passage for their allies. As Qhorin's team attacks a camp, Jon hesitates in killing a wildling woman named Ygritte. As Ygritte escapes, Jon chases after her, resulting in him being separated from Qhorin and night falling. Jon takes Ygritte as his prisoner and is forced to rely on her for survival as they attempt to reunite with Qhorin. Along their journey, Jon starts to realize that her people may not be the evil savages he was told they were. They are just people forced to become hardened by the harsh conditions beyond the Wall, a home they were forced to live in after the construction of the Wall left them separated from the rest of Westeros. Unfortunately, Ygritte leads Jon into a trap and he is captured by a wildling party led by the Lord of Bones. Ygritte convinces her wildling allies to spare Jon's life, and he is forced to accompany them to speak with Mance Rayder. On their journey, Jon discovers that Qhorin has also been captured, and the elder Rayder devises a plan to save Jon and aid their Night's Watch brothers. Qhorin stages a fight with Jon, calling him a traitor, forcing Jon to kill him to prove his desertion of the Night's Watch and loyalty to the wildlings. As Mormont's group await Jon and Qhorin's return, Sam, Grin, and Ed discover a hidden cache of dragon glass, the only material aside from Valyrian steel that can kill a White Walker. And those weapons would prove to be very valuable as the White Walkers finally reveal themselves, marching their army toward the Wall, much to Sam's horror. In Season 3 of Game of Thrones, the Lannisters struggle with political rivals both outside and from within King's Landing. The Tyrells quickly ingratiate themselves, with Margaery proving to be very popular amongst the commoners, inspiring jealousy from Cersei. Margaery's grandmother, Lady Olenna, schemes to set her family up for more power, while also protecting them from the wrath of the villainous Lannisters. They offer their help to Sansa by proposing she marry Loras, allowing her to live a peaceful life away from Joffrey, while also securing themselves allies in the north. Meanwhile, Littlefinger, due to his love for Catelyn and strange affection for Sansa, offers to help Sansa flee King's Landing himself. But Tywin Lannister proves his strategic prowess by uncovering the various plots to steal Sansa and use her as a pawn to rally the North against his family. And so, Tywin plots the marriage of Littlefinger to Lysa Arryn, Jon Arryn's widow and Catelyn's sister, to force her family's house to remain loyal to the crown and not the young Robb Stark. Tywin also plots to have Tyrion and Cersei marry Sansa and Loras, much to their dismay. Although Tyrion is forced into the marriage, he proves himself a kind ally to Sansa and refuses to consummate it. Elsewhere, Brienne and her prisoner Jaime continue their long trek to King's Landing. Along their journey, they are captured by a man named Locke, a bannerman of Robb's loyal ally Roose Bolton. Jaime stands up for Brienne to protect her from Locke's sadistic men, but gets his own sword hand cut off in response. With Jaime at his lowest point, wondering what his purpose is now that he isn't the best swordsman in Westeros, Brienne shows him kindness and encouragement, leading the two to bond and Jaime to share his emotions to her in a way he's never expressed to anyone else before. Roose then agrees to send Jaime back to his family in King's Landing, but chooses to keep Brienne. Proving his devotion to his new friend, Jaime saves Brienne and the two continue their journey to King's Landing together. Jaime finally reunites with his sister and lover Cersei, but has changed greatly since they last saw each other. Meanwhile, Davos Seaworth has miraculously survived the Battle of Blackwater and makes his way back to Stannis, who has grown morose following his defeat. In an attempt to strengthen Stannis' spirits and power, Melisandre begins burning innocent people alive to appease the Lord of Light. Davos is disgusted by these actions and attempts to kill the Red Priestess, but is thwarted and thrown in a prison cell. There he is befriended by Stannis' young daughter, Princess Shireen, who visits him often and teaches him how to read. Stannis eventually releases Davos upon his promise that he will not try to harm Melisandre again. After their escape from Harrenhal, Arya, Gendry, and Hot Pie encounter a rebel group known as the Brotherhood Without Banners, which includes a Red Priest, Thoros of Myr, and a fierce warrior and former lord, Beric Dondarrion. As Hot Pie chooses to stay at a local inn to become a cook and live peacefully, the Brotherhood find and capture the Hound. Beric forces the Hound to duel him in a trial by combat as judgment for his many crimes under the rule of the Lannisters. The Hound defeats and kills Beric, clearing his name, while Beric is magically resurrected by Thoros, an act which he has performed many times before. Melisandre arrives and purchases Gendry from the Brotherhood, intending to use the king's blood of his father Robert and a blood magic spell to help Stannis. Arya is distraught over the Brotherhood selling Gendry and runs off on her own before being captured by the recently freed Hound. Despite her hatred for the Hound, Arya is relieved to learn he has deserted the Lannisters and intends to deliver her safely to her brother Robb, in exchange for a large ransom. In his castle of Dragonstone, Stannis burns leeches containing Gendry's blood, cursing Robb, Joffrey, and Balon. When Davos learns that Stannis and Melisandre intend to escalate their schemes and sacrifice Gendry to the Lord of Light, Davos intervenes and helps the boy escape. A furious Stannis contemplates killing Davos, but Melisandre convinces him to spare his hand's life, assuring that Davos will prove valuable in their future fight against the White Walker invasion. North of the Wall, Sam, Mormont, and the surviving Night's Watchmen race to warn the Seven Kingdoms of the impending White Walker invasion. The group return to Craster's Keep, where Sam reunites with Gilly, who gives birth to a son. A group of traitorous Night's Watchmen then stage a mutiny and betray their sworn brothers, murdering Craster and Mormont while Sam flees with Gilly and her newborn son. With no one else to depend on for protection, Sam is forced to become a chivalrous hero to protect his new love and her child as they journey back to his Night's Watch brothers on the Wall at Castle Black. When the trio are attacked by a White Walker, Sam defends Gilly and her child, killing the Walker with a dragonglass dagger. Further north beyond the Wall, Jon is taken to meet the Wildling King Mance Rayder. Mance believes Jon's lies that he is a Night's Watch deserter and sends him with a small party of wildlings, led by Tormund Giantsbane, to climb the wall and pave the way for a wildling attack on the Night's Watch. Mance believes this is essential for the survival of his people, as the growing White Walker army has made the area north of the Wall too dangerous to survive. Joining Jon in Tormund's party is Ygritte. Along their journey, Jon and Ygritte begin to genuinely fall in love, leading Jon to break his Night's Watch oath and have sex. Elsewhere in the north, Bran, Rickon, Hodor, and Osha continue their journey to the Wall. Along the way, Bran discovers that he is both a warg, who can transport his mind into other creatures, and a seer, who has visions of both the past and future. The group are then joined by the siblings Jojen and Mira Reed, whose father was a close friend of Ned. Jojen is also a seer who saw the importance of Bran, and therefore they pledged their loyalty to him. The group are now traveling north of the Wall to find the Three-Eyed Raven, a mythical figure that Bran sees in dreams who can help him master his burgeoning abilities. Bran's group eventually cross paths with Jon and his wildling group. When Jon is discovered to be a traitor, Tormund orders his death. Bran wargs into his dire wolf summer to save the unaware Jon, who then flees the wildlings to the devastation of his lover Ygritte. Bran then tasks Osha with taking Rickon to the Umber family, allies of the Starks who can keep them safe. Bran, Hodor, Jojen, and Mira then encounter Sam and Gilly. Realizing Bran is Jon's brother, Sam gives the group Dragonglass to protect themselves against White Walkers. In Essos, Daenerys and her people arrive in Slaver's Bay to buy an army of Unsullied, enslaved soldiers trained for nothing but battle, all made eunuchs to avoid any of them being distracted by romance. After purchasing the Unsullied, she has her new army team up with her dragons to kill all of the slave traders and release every captured slave in the city. With Slaver's Bay eradicated of its evil slavers, Daenerys offers the Unsullied their freedom, and they all agree to willingly follow her into battle. Amongst Daenerys' newfound allies is Unsullied leader Grey Worm and a former slave and interpreter Missandei, who quickly becomes one of Daenerys' closest friends and confidants. Daenerys is also joined by Barristan Selmy, a highly respected and long-serving member of the Westerosi Kingsguard, serving dutifully to Daenerys' father and even the usurper King Robert Baratheon, only to be unceremoniously removed by the petulant Joffrey. Now Barristan aligns with Daenerys to help her reclaim her family's throne. As Daenerys continues her campaign across Essos, liberating slaves and amassing a larger army, the heads of the city of Yunkai hire a mercenary group known as the Second Sons to assassinate Daenerys. Instead, a member of the Second Sons, Daario Naharis, betrays his comrades and kills them, pledging his loyalty to Daenerys. Daario then helps Jorah and Grey Worm defeat the slavers of Yunkai and liberate the city, causing its newly freed people to worship their new savior, Daenerys Targaryen. Back in Westeros, Robb Stark is forced to pause his battles to accompany Catelyn to her father's funeral, reuniting with her brother Edmure Tully and uncle Blackfish Tully. With Robb pausing his campaign and forsaking his promise to Walder by marrying Talisa, now pregnant with his child, many of Robb's most trusted bannermen begin to doubt his decision-making. Robb attempts to make amends with Walder Frey, personally apologizing for breaking his oath, and offering his uncle Edmure to marry one of Walder's daughters in his place. At the wedding of Edmure and Walder's daughter Rosalind, Roose Bolton reveals himself to be a traitor working with Walder Frey and Tywin Lannister. Robb's unsuspecting army are slaughtered, Talisa and Catelyn are killed by the Freys, and Robb is killed by his treacherous former ally Roose Bolton. For their actions, the Lannisters reward Walder Frey with the Tully home of Riverrun, while Roose Bolton is named the new Warden of the North. Meanwhile, Roose's son Ramsay continues his torture of Theon Greyjoy, including cutting off his genitals. Theon is now a broken man who feels great remorse for his betrayal of the Stark family, acknowledging that Ned was a truer father to him than Balon ever was. As Arya and the Hound arrive to finally reunite with Robb and Catelyn, they instead discover the aftermath of the Stark slaughter. A devastated Arya is joined by the compassionate Hound and killing a small group of boasting Freys they encounter as they flee the carnage. In King's Landing, as the season comes to a close, a distraught Tyrion warns his father Tywin that the North will remember the Lannisters' part in the horrific actions in what is now known as the Red Wedding. In Season 4 of Game of Thrones, representatives from the most powerful houses in Westeros arrive in King's Landing for the wedding of Joffrey and Margaery. One of those powerful guests is Prince Oberyn Martell of Dorne, alongside his paramour Ellaria Sand. Secretly, Oberyn seeks revenge on the Mountain, who on the orders of Tywin Lannister had raped and murdered his sister Elia during Robert's rebellion. Tywin melts Ned Stark's Valyrian steel ancestral house sword into two new swords. One he gifts to Jaime, and the the other he gifts to Joffrey as a wedding present. During the extravagant wedding reception, Joffrey shockingly falls dead from an apparent poisoning. A distraught Cersei blames her brother Tyrion, leading to his arrest. Knowing his arrest would mean imminent danger for his allies, Tyrion urges Podrick to flee the city and cruelly breaks up with Shae to ensure that she returns to her former home in Essos. Amidst the chaos of Joffrey's murder, Littlefinger has Sansa smuggled out of King's Landing. As Lannister forces hunt down the missing Sansa, Jaime sends Brienne to find and protect her, allowing her to uphold her oath to Catelyn. Jaime sends Podrick to be Brienne's new squire and also gives her his Valyrian steel sword, which she aptly names Oathkeeper. Elsewhere, the Hound now intends to ransom Arya to her aunt Lysa Arryn. Along the way, the two begin to bond, despite Arya having a long-standing hatred toward the Hound for his treacherous actions under Lannister command. On their trek, Arya encounters the Lannister soldier Polliver, killing him and reclaiming her long-lost sword Needle. Polliver was one of many names on Arya's list of people who have wronged her and her family that she plans to one day kill. And despite their burgeoning friendship, that list still very much includes the Hound. Littlefinger and Sansa arrive in the Arryn home of the Vale, where Sansa is publicly disguised as Littlefinger's niece. Littlefinger then marries Lysa, who has long been obsessed with him, and she reveals that she was in fact the one responsible for her husband Jon Arryn's death at Littlefinger's command. And Jon Arryn isn't the only death caused by Littlefinger, as he and Lady Olenna Tyrell were in fact the true secret masterminds behind the poison assassination of King Joffrey Baratheon. While ruling the Vale together, Lysa grows possessive over Littlefinger and dangerously jealous of Sansa. Despite Sansa's resistance, Littlefinger kisses her, as she reminds him of his lifelong love for her mother. When Lysa witnesses this kiss, she confronts Littlefinger. Littlefinger admits that he never loved Lysa, as he had only ever had love for Catelyn, then murders Lysa and takes full control of her home in the Vale. As Arya and the Hound reach the Vale, they learn of Lysa's death. Not realizing that her sister Sansa is also secretly in the Vale, Arya can't help but laugh at once again arriving too late to reunite with her family. As Arya and the Hound depart, they are confronted by Brienne and Podrick. Despite Brienne's claims to be working on the orders of the late Catelyn, Arya doesn't trust the stranger due to her wielding Oathkeeper, a Lannister sword. The Hound and Brienne duel over Arya, leading to Brienne defeating the Hound and knocking him off a cliff. As Brienne and Podrick depart, Arya confronts the mortally wounded Hound, refusing to kill him to put him out of his misery. Instead, Arya steals his money and uses the coin Jaqen had previously given to her to board a ship to Braavos to train with the Faceless Men. Elsewhere, Roose Bolton reunites with Ramsay and chastises his son for his brutal treatment of Theon. Theon admits that Bran and Rickon are still alive, threatening Roose's position as Warden of the North, so Roose sends Locke to hunt them down. Ramsay is then sent by his father to take back control of various lands taken over by Balon Greyjoy's Iron Islanders, with the broken Theon accompanying him as a trusted lapdog. Theon's sister Yara leads a small army to rescue Theon, but he has become so broken by Ramsay that he refuses her help and the opportunity of freedom, fearing it will simply lead to more abuse by the cruel Ramsay. Yara leaves Theon behind, dismissing her brother for good. In Essos, Daenerys' forces liberate the final slave city Meereen, and Daenerys shows no mercy on the slave traders, crucifying them along the street as a warning for anyone else that tries to go against her rule. Unfortunately, the other cities that Daenerys had liberated fall back into slavery in her absence, prompting Daenerys to choose to stay in Essos to rule and keep the continent liberated and free. Daenerys grows closer to Daario, and the two sleep together, inspiring the jealousy of Jorah. Meanwhile, Grey Worm and Missandei develop their own feelings for each other, but their relationship is complicated due to all Unsullied being eunuchs. Barristan Selmy then discovers that Jorah was originally sent to Daenerys as a spy for Robert Baratheon. Jorah explains that after meeting the young queen, he fell in love with her and has shown nothing but loyalty and devotion since joining her cause. Daenerys refuses to accept Jorah's apologies and chooses to exile him. When Daenerys' dragon Drogon begins to act aggressively and kills an innocent child before flying away, Daenerys is forced to make the difficult decision to chain up her other dragons. In the north, the wildling army marches toward the wall, slaughtering many innocent free folk along the way. During one attack, Ygritte kills the father of a boy named Ollie, who flees to Castle Black. Meanwhile, Jon Snow makes it back to Castle Black to warn his Night's Watch brothers that an army of 100,000 wildlings would soon descend upon their meagerly defended and undermanned home. Sam helps Jon send letters to all of the great houses of Westeros, including the Lannisters, begging for help to defend against the incoming wildling invasion. In Dragonstone, Melisandre continues sacrificing people to the Lord of Light to aid Stannis' campaign, all to the continued horror of Davos and the young princess Shireen. Davos begins searching for ways to earn Stannis powerful allies without having to resort to human sacrifice. Davos helps Stannis secure a loan from the Iron Bank of Braavos that will fund the hiring of sellswords to bolster Stannis' army. Back in King's Landing, Tywin reveals to Cersei that the Lannisters are deeply in debt to the Iron Bank, and therefore must marry their house to the wealthy Tyrells to help pay off their debts. That would require Cersei to move forward with her marriage to Loras, and also sees the newly crowned Child King Tommen marrying the twice-widowed adult Margaery Tyrell. During Tyrion's trial for Joffrey's murder, he and Jaime realize that Tywin has manipulated witnesses to give false testimonies to ensure Tyrion's conviction. One of those witnesses is Shae, who, feeling betrayed by Tyrion sending her away, decides to take part in Tywin's sinister plot. Realizing he will never have a fair trial by jury, Tyrion chooses to instead demand a trial by combat. Cersei names the Mountain as her champion for the trial, but Tyrion doesn't have many options for his own champion. Despite being trained by Bronn in left-handed sword combat, Jaime still isn't skilled enough to act as his brother's champion, and Bronn refuses to help Tyrion as Cersei has promised him a title and a highborn bride. Fortunately, Oberyn Martell agrees to be Tyrion's champion, having waited years for the opportunity to face the Mountain in combat and avenge his sister. During the duel, Oberyn quickly gets the upper hand, besting the Mountain and mortally wounding him with a poison blade. But before Oberyn kills the Mountain, he wants the Savage to confess to having killed Elia. The Mountain takes this opportunity to grab Oberyn and crush his skull, taunting his confession to Elia's murder. Tyrion is shocked and distraught by Oberyn's defeat, and with the Mountain's victory, Tywin sentences Tyrion to death. Cersei then has the Mountain's life saved by Qyburn, a disgraced former maester who was kicked out of the Order for his many dark and unethical human experiments. As Tyrion awaits his execution, he is visited by Jaime, who helps him escape. As Tyrion flees King's Landing, he first stops to take revenge against his father. In Tywin's quarters, Tyrion finds Shae in bed. Feeling betrayed and vengeful, Tyrion murders her. Tyrion then finds Tywin on the toilet and shoots him dead. Varys then helps Tyrion board a ship to Essos, proving himself to actually have the best interest of the kingdom in mind, unlike his political rival Littlefinger. Back at the Wall, Locke arrives, posing as a Night's Watch recruit, but secretly there to spy on Jon in an attempt to uncover the location of Bran and Rickon. Locke joins Jon and a group of Night's Watchmen to travel to Craster's Keep and kill the mutineers, in an attempt to prevent them from alerting the wildlings to the Night's Watch's meager defenses. Unbeknownst to Jon, Bran, Hodor, Jojen, and Mira have all been captured by the mutineers at Craster's Keep. As Jon's group arrive and kill the mutineers in a battle which also sees the death of Locke, Jojen urges Bran to remain hidden and continue their journey, as reuniting with Jon could cause Bran to want to stay with his family instead of following his destiny. And so, Bran and his allies continue their journey north, eventually arriving at the Three-Eyed Raven's home known as the Heart Tree. The group are attacked by skeleton warriors who kill Jojen, but the others are saved by the Children of the Forest, who then take Bran into the Heart Tree to finally meet the Three-Eyed Raven. As the season comes to a close, the wildlings attack Castle Black from all sides. Grin sacrifices himself, leading a small group to defend the wall's inner gate from a giant attack. Meanwhile, Pip is tragically killed by an arrow from Ygritte. As the casualties pile up, Jon rallies the paltry numbers of the Night's Watch brothers to fight off the wildlings. As Ygritte has a chance to vengefully kill her former lover, she hesitates. The young Ollie then shoots Ygritte, who dies in the arms of a heartbroken Jon. Ultimately, the Night's Watch defeat the wildling army, who are forced to retreat. Tormund wants to go down fighting, but Jon chooses to spare his life and instead keep him as a prisoner. Following the battle, battle, Jon rides out into the massive wildling camp alone to meet with Mance Rayder, secretly planning to sacrifice his own life to assassinate the wildling king. During the meeting, Stannis' army arrives and overwhelms the wildling forces. Of all of the noble houses in Westeros, it is only Stannis who heeded the call of the Night's Watch and took the defense of the wall seriously, as Melisandre has seen visions of the dangers of the incoming White Walker invasion. With his heroic action, Stannis has earned the respect of the Night's Watch, and alongside Jon Snow, he captures the wildling king, Mance Rayder. In Season 5 of Game of Thrones, King Tommen officially marries Margaery Tyrell, who is able to easily manipulate her new child husband. Threatened by her new lack of power, Cersei begins plotting to take control of the small council. A religious movement known as the Sparrows begins gaining popularity amongst the citizens of King's Landing, and even Lancel Lannister becomes a convert. Cersei empowers the High Sparrow to assemble the Faith Militant, his own religious army that seeks to uphold the laws of the faith. They arrest Loras for his homosexuality, devastating Margaery and allowing Cersei to avoid being forced into marrying him. When Margaery comes to her brother's defense and lies about his sexuality, she too is arrested for perjury. Cersei then receives a message from Ellaria Sand in Dorne, threatening the life of her daughter Myrcella. Jaime agrees to travel to Dorne to rescue his daughter, bringing along his new friend Bronn after promising him a new bride with an even bigger castle for his assistance. In Dorne, Ellaria is furious over the death of Oberyn and wants to kill Myrcella as revenge against the Lannisters. Oberyn's brother, the ruling Prince Doran, refuses Ellaria's revenge plot, as he has promised Myrcella's protection and her betrothal to his son Trystane. And so, Ellaria and Oberyn's daughters, known as the Sand Snakes, are forced to plot their own revenge. Jaime and Bronn manage to rescue Myrcella, but as they sail back to King's Landing, Myrcella falls dead in her father's arms, having been secretly poisoned by the vengeful Ellaria. Unfortunately for Cersei, the death of her daughter is only the beginning of her problems, as her master plan backfires when the High Sparrow grows too powerful for her to control and has no allegiance to anyone but his gods. He arrests Cersei for incest and the murder of her husband Robert Baratheon. As part of Cersei's punishment while awaiting trial, she is subjected to a public shaming, but as Cersei is literally stripped of her power, she finds support in Qyburn and his newly resurrected Mountain, who is now a powerful and mindless zombie, which Cersei can use to enact her revenge. In Braavos, Arya arrives at the Temple of the Faceless Men. Jaqen teaches her that to become an assassin who can change their face to be anyone, Arya must first become no one. Jaqen tasks Arya with destroying all of her personal belongings, but secretly she hides away her sword needle. As Arya advances in her training, she develops a rivalry with a fellow acolyte vying for Jaqen's respect, known as the Waif. Arya becomes distracted from her training when she encounters another name on her list of revenge, Meryn Trant. Meryn is a member of the Lannister Kingsguard who murdered her sword-fighting teacher in King's Landing following Ned's arrest and execution. Arya enacts her revenge and murders Meryn, but is then punished for disobeying the Faceless Men's rules by having her vision taken from her. In the north, Stannis demands that Mance Rayder pledge an oath to him and align the wildling army to his cause. Mance refuses the offer and is burned at the stake. Stannis then offers to legitimize the bastard Jon as a true Stark, in an attempt to use Jon to rally the northern houses behind House Baratheon. Jon also refuses Stannis' offer, choosing to remain devoted to his Night's Watch oath. And so, Stannis begins his march toward Winterfell, having failed to gather any support as he prepares to eradicate the villainous Bolton forces. Elsewhere, Brienne and Podrick finally catch up with Sansa while she is in the care of Littlefinger. Although Sansa refuses Brienne's help, Brienne doesn't trust Littlefinger's duplicitousness and chooses to secretly follow the pair, ready to intervene should Sansa ever need a protector. And Brienne is right to be concerned, as Littlefinger has devised a plot to marry Sansa to the evil Ramsay, joining his Vale army with the Bolton forces of the north, unfortunately unaware of how cruel and sadistic Ramsay truly is. As Ramsay assaults his new bride, the broken Theon finally begins to feel the emotions of his former self, horrified by the girl he always considered a sister being treated so abusively. In secret, Theon confesses to Sansa that Bran and Rickon are still alive, but marrying Sansa to Ramsay is only one part of Littlefinger's master plan. With Stannis' forces marching to eradicate the Boltons from Winterfell, the Baratheon army would need to name Sansa the Wardeness of the North to unite all of the northern houses around Sansa. And so, no matter who won in the battle between House Baratheon and House Bolton, Sansa and Littlefinger would always come out on top. As Stannis' army marches toward Winterfell, they are caught in a blizzard that threatens to derail the entire battle. Melisandre wants to sacrifice Princess Shireen to earn the Lord of Light's favor, but Stannis refuses to murder his own daughter. But as the conditions worsen and Stannis realizes he is close to defeat before the battle even begins, he sends Davos back to the Wall to call on the Night's Watch for aid, and then reluctantly agrees to sacrifice his own daughter. This heinous act only leads to half of Stannis' army deserting him for his callousness. Nevertheless, he marches his remaining army to Winterfell, where they are defeated by the Boltons. A mortally wounded Stannis survives the battle, but he is found by the nearby Brienne, who murders him out of revenge for his killing of Renly. During the chaos of the battle, Theon finally breaks free of Ramsay's control and helps Sansa escape her sadistic husband and the confines of the Bolton-controlled Winterfell. In Essos, Varys reveals to Tyrion that he has been scheming for years to help Daenerys return to Westeros and claim the Iron Throne. Hoping to win Tyrion over to the Targaryen side, Varys asks his friend to accompany him to meet the infamous Khaleesi. Unfortunately, Tyrion is then kidnapped by Jorah Mormont, who thinks turning over a villainous Lannister to Daenerys will earn his way back into her good graces. On their journey together, the duo are attacked by stone men, which leaves Jorah infected with the lethal grayscale disease. Elsewhere in Essos, former slave masters form an insurgency group known as the Sons of the Harpy to overthrow Daenerys and return their cities to their old slave trading ways. The people of the newly freed cities begin demanding the reopening of the fighting pits, which Daenerys had closed after finding the forced slave battles to be barbaric. In their attempt to overthrow Daenerys, the Sons of the Harpy attack and seriously injure Grey Worm, while also tragically killing Barristan Selmy. Daenerys then discovers that her chained dragons have grown resentful and aggressive toward her, leaving her to feel defeated. And so, Daenerys reluctantly decides to reopen the fighting pits and announces her intentions to marry the powerful former slave trader Hizdahr Lorak, in the hopes of appeasing the Sons. At the reopening of the fighting pits, Jorah is revealed to be a fighter, announcing to Daenerys in the crowd that he has brought her a gift, Tyrion Lannister. Jorah's plan backfires as Tyrion quickly wins the trust of Daenerys to become her most trusted political counsel, while Jorah is exiled once again. At another tournament in the fighting pits, assassins from the Sons of the Harpy, unmoved by Daenerys' acts of peace, attack the Mother of Dragons. Jorah, still fighting in the pits, dutifully rescues his queen, alongside her long-missing dragon Drogon. Drogon has grown considerably since Daenerys last saw him, and she is now able to ride him for the first time, flying to safety outside of the pits, to the amazement of everyone in attendance. Back at the Wall, Jon Snow is elected the new Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. Older members of the Watch, including Alliser Thorne and Janos Slynt, become bitter over their own failures at being elected. When Slynt refuses to heed the orders of his new Lord Commander, Jon is forced to execute him to prove his authority. With Stannis' army now gone, Jon realizes that the Night's Watch will stand no chance against the White Walker invasion. He sends letters to all of the great houses of Westeros, but no one takes the White Walker threat seriously. And so, Jon forges an alliance with the imprisoned Tormund, promising to secure land for the wildlings south of the Wall in exchange for their help in the battle against the White Walkers. This alliance infuriates the majority of the Night's Watch, who just lost many of their allies in the wildling attack on Castle Black. Jon ignores the dissatisfaction of men like Alliser Thorne and travels with Tormund north of the Wall to rally the wildlings living in the settlement of Hardhome. Jon and Tormund convince an army of 5,000 wildlings to join them, but their celebration is interrupted when they are overrun by the White Walker army, led by the Night King. Most of the innocent and fleeing wildlings are slaughtered by the White Walkers and then resurrected as zombie whites. Jon and Tormund are forced to flee Hardhome, taking the surviving wildlings, including a giant named One-One, back to Castle Black to seek refuge. Upon Jon's return, he sends Sam to the city of Old Town, alongside Gilly and her baby Little Sam, to train to become a maester and uncover any helpful information on how to defeat the White Walkers. Davos arrives at the Wall to seek Jon's help for Stannis' army, but when Melisandre arrives alone shortly after, he realizes that his king has been defeated and all hope is lost. Jon is then confronted by many of his fellow Night's Watch brothers, including Alliser Thorne and the young Ollie, who resent him for bringing their rival wildlings into their home. Believing that Jon no longer knows what is best for the Watch, they take matters into their own hands, betraying their Lord Commander and shockingly stabbing Jon Snow to death. In Season 6 of Game of Thrones, Davos and Melisandre hide with Jon Snow's body as Alliser Thorne assumes command of the Night's Watch. Jon's loyal Night's Watch brother Ed helps rally the wildlings led by Tormund and the Giant 1-1 to overthrow the Night's Watch mutineers and imprison them. Despite Melisandre's crisis of faith following Stannis' death, Davos convinces her to attempt to resurrect Jon. Much to everyone's amazement, Melisandre's magic works and Jon is brought back to life. The resurrected Jon Snow then hangs the traitorous Night's Watch mutineers, including Alliser Thorne and Olly. Melisandre confesses that she had prophesied a heroic prince saving the realms and had thought that Stannis was that hero, but following Jon's resurrection, her faith now lies in him. The Boltons and Littlefinger are now searching for the missing Sansa and Theon, as both sides need the young Stark for their own machinations to rally the North behind them. But it is in fact Brienne and Podrick who find Sansa and Theon, saving the pair from Bolton soldiers. Sansa finally accepts Brienne as her sworn protector, while Theon amicably parts ways with Sansa to return home to the Iron Islands. Realizing that Sansa will seek refuge with her brother Jon at the Wall, Ramsay suggests to his father that the Bolton army march against the Night's Watch. Roose refuses, knowing that attacking the Night's Watch would turn the entire realm against them. When Ramsay discovers that his father's new wife has given birth to a son and possible replacement heir, Ramsay murders his father, stepmother, and baby brother and takes full control of the North. One of the houses now allied with Ramsay is House Umber, who turns over Rickon as a prisoner and allows Ramsay to murder the young Stark's wildling protector Osha. Brienne and Podrick then safely deliver Sansa to Castle Black, where Jon and Sansa are reunited for the first time in years. Sansa then announces her desire to retake their family home of Winterfell from Ramsay Bolton. Jon, having fulfilled his Night's Watch oath in death, is reluctant at first, but upon learning that Ramsay has taken Rickon as his prisoner, he agrees to fight alongside Sansa. As Jon and Sansa begin rallying northern houses to their side, Sansa sends Brienne to recruit her great uncle Blackfish of House Tully to join their fight. Fearing that given time, Ramsay will rally more northern houses to his cause, Jon and his wildling army begin their march into battle early. Elsewhere, Sam, Gilly, and Little Sam continue their journey to Old Town. Along the way, Gilly affirms her love for Sam and that she considers him to be the father of her child. Sam reveals that women aren't allowed at the Maester Citadel and takes Gilly and their baby to stay with his family, who have always hated him for his lack of abilities as a traditional knight. Reminded of his father and brother's cruelty, Sam chooses to ignore the rules and take Gilly and Little Sam with him to the Citadel, while also stealing his family's Valyrian steel sword, Heartsbane. The Hound has survived his fight with Brienne and found peace amongst his savior, a Septon named Ray. When Ray and his village are murdered by rebel members of the Brotherhood Without Banners, the Hound hunts down the bandits and kills them, reuniting with Beric and Thoros, who invite him to join them on their trek to the Wall to join the fight against the upcoming White Walker invasion. In Braavos, Arya is forced to continue her training while adjusting to being blind. After excelling in her training and proving to Jaqen that she has fully shed her former identity to become no one, Arya is granted her sight back. Arya is then assigned by Jaqen to kill a target named Lady Crane, but before killing her target, Arya grows fond of Lady Crane and decides to forsake her assignment and spare Crane's life. In response, Jaqen gives the waif permission to kill Arya. Arya, having learned all that she needs from the Faceless Men, retrieves her sword needle and prepares to flee. As the waif tries to kill her, Arya extinguishes the lights and uses her experience with blindness to aid her in killing the waif. Jaqen congratulates Arya for completing her training, but Arya instead announces her plans to return to Westeros. In the Iron Islands, Balon Greyjoy is killed by his brother Euron, who wants to take over his family's house and army for himself. As Euron attempts to take over the Iron Islands, Theon returns home to reconcile with his sister Yara and support her claim as Balon's heir. Despite this, Euron is elected the new head of the Iron Islands, and he announces his plans to sail to Slaver's Bay and marry Daenerys Targaryen, aligning their armies to take over all of Westeros together. Realizing they wouldn't be safe with their villainous uncle in power, Theon and Yara flee the Iron Islands with the best ships in the Iron Fleet. Yara then declares that her plan is to reach Daenerys and forge an alliance with her before Euron can. In King's Landing, Jaime arrives with the dead Myrcella, swearing to Cersei that he will help her return their family to its former glory and seek vengeance against all of their rivals, including the High Sparrow. Meanwhile, Ellaria and the Sand Snakes continue their revenge plot. Thinking Doran is too weak a ruler, Ellaria and the Sand Snakes murder Doran and his son Trystane. To save his wife Margaery from her imprisonment by the Sparrows, Tommen chooses to align with the High Sparrow, uniting the Faith with the Crown and giving the High Sparrow even more power. Tommen then removes Jaime from the King's Guard for his lack of devotion to the Faith. Jaime is then tasked with defeating the Blackfish, who has led a small army to retake the Tully home of Riverrun from Walder Frey. As Jaime arrives at Riverrun to force the Blackfish and his army out, he is reunited with Brienne, who asks for the chance to persuade the Blackfish to leave peacefully and join Sansa in her attack on Winterfell. Jaime agrees to his friend's plan, but the Blackfish refuses to surrender, and so Jaime uses the imprisoned Edmure to force the Tully army to stand down, while an indignant Blackfish dies fighting. Walder Frey and his family then take Riverrun, but Arya soon arrives back in Westeros, killing Walder's family and baking them into meat pies, which she tricks him into eating before murdering him. Meanwhile, Cersei plots her moves to overthrow the High Sparrow and take full control of King's Landing. Her loyal ally Qyburn orchestrates the murder of Grand Maester Pycelle, removing a piece of opposition from the small council. Loras confesses to his crimes before the High Sparrow and denounces his family name to join the Faith Militant. But as Loras and Margaery are finally prepared to be free of their imprisonment, Cersei uses wildfire to blow up the entire sept, killing Loras, Margaery, Lancel, and the High Sparrow. Distraught over the death of his wife, Tommen walks out of his own window and plummets to his death. As Cersei mourns the death of her final living child, she is officially crowned the new queen of the Seven Kingdoms. North of the Wall, Bran begins his training with the Three-Eyed Raven, seeing many visions of Westeros' past. This includes learning that Jon Snow's parents are in fact Rhaegar Targaryen and his captive Lyanna Stark. When Lyanna's brother Ned found her on her deathbed following childbirth, Lyanna asked her brother to protect her child, as his Targaryen blood made him a target for death following the fall of House Targaryen during Robert's rebellion. And so, the Honorable Ned Stark chose to tarnish his own name to claim Jon Snow as his own bastard son. Bran also learns that the Children of the Forest were responsible for originally creating the White Walkers, not knowing the evil they were unleashing into the world. As Bran continues exploring his visions, the Heart Tree is attacked by the Night King and an army of Whites. The Three-Eyed Raven is killed by the Night King, while the Children of the Forest and Bran's direwolf Summer are killed by Whites. While still in a vision of the past, Bran accidentally splits his consciousness into the mind of a young Hodor, then named Willis, and the Hodor of the present to hold off the Whites. The connecting of the past and present minds of Hodor causes the young Willis to suffer a seizure, and while Mira yells for the present-day Hodor to hold the door to keep the Whites at bay, the seizure-afflicted young Willis begins to mutter the words "hold the door," which eventually slurs into what will become his new name, Hodor. Bran leaves Hodor's mind and escapes with Mira, watching in horror as Hodor is killed by Whites. Bran is distraught over the realization that he had inadvertently been the cause of Hodor's lifelong mental disability. As Bran and Mira flee the Heart Tree, they are rescued by Bran's long-lost uncle, Benjen Stark. Benjen explains that his disappearance was caused by being stabbed by a White Walker, only for the Children of the Forest to heal him. Benjen also affirms that Bran is the new Three-Eyed Raven and must master his newfound abilities to aid the fast-approaching battle against the Night King's army. In the north, the battle between the bastards Jon Snow and Ramsay Bolton finally begins. Ramsay first kills Rickon to goad Jon into recklessness. In the fight, the Bolton forces greatly outnumber Jon's army. Despite this, Jon does his best to rally his allies, despite defeat seeming imminent. When all hope seems lost for Jon and his allies, Sansa arrives with Littlefinger and his Knights of the Vale, turning the tide of the battle and defeating the Bolton forces. Ramsay retreats into Winterfell, killing the giant 1-1 before Jon defeats Ramsay and beats him to near death. But it is actually Sansa Stark who kills Ramsay, feeding him to his own pack of dogs. And with that, the Starks have reclaimed their family home of Winterfell. Jon and Davos banish Melisandre from the north for her various human sacrifices, including the tragic death of the young Princess Shireen. Littlefinger confesses to Sansa his ultimate desire of seating himself on the Iron Throne, with Sansa serving by his side. Sansa turns down Littlefinger's offer and chooses to side with the other northern houses in naming Jon Snow the new king in the north. In Essos, Daenerys is found and captured by a Dothraki tribe led by Khal Moro. Moro refuses to allow Daenerys to return to Meereen, insisting that widows of Khals must live out their lives in the sacred Dothraki city of Vaes Dothrak. There, Daenerys is found by Jorah and Daario, who help her defeat the Khals. Daenerys burns them all alive, but she emerges from the flames unharmed, leading the entire Dothraki people to bow down to their new leader. Jorah reveals his grayscale affliction to Daenerys and affirms his continued romantic love for her. Daenerys reconciles with Jorah and encourages him to find a cure for grayscale so that he can be by her side when she conquers Westeros. Back in Meereen, Tyrion tries to use his political acumen to ease the tension between Daenerys and the slave traders. Varys then departs for Westeros to rally more allies for Daenerys, securing alliances with Olenna Tyrell and Ellaria Sand. Despite Tyrion's best efforts, the former slave masters remain hostile toward Daenerys and stage a massive coup on Meereen. Daario and Grey Worm lead the Dothraki and Unsullied armies on land, while Daenerys and her dragons take to the skies to finally defeat the Sons of the Harpy and permanently liberate Slaver's Bay. In the aftermath, Theon and Yara arrive to align with Daenerys, offering up their fleet of ships in exchange for Yara being given control of the Iron Islands over Euron. Daenerys then entrusts Daario to keep order in Meereen as she finally departs for Westeros, accompanied by her army of unsullied Dothraki and Ironborn, her 3 growing dragons, and her new Hand of the Queen, Tyrion Lannister. In Season 7 of Game of Thrones, Queen Cersei and Jaime try to rally support amongst the noble houses of Westeros against the soon-arriving Daenerys Targaryen. To aid in the upcoming fight, Qyburn constructs weapons known as scorpions that would theoretically have the power to kill a dragon. Sam's villainous father and brother of House Tarly align with Cersei, with Sam's father Randall being named Warden of the South for his loyalty. Jaime and Randall capture the Tyrell home of Highgarden, where Jaime allows Lady Olenna to peacefully die from poison. But as she dies, the old but mighty Olenna defiantly tells Jaime that she wants Cersei to know that she was the one responsible for Joffrey's death. With the Tyrells defeated, the Lannisters loot Highgarden for all its gold, which Jaime begins marching back to King's Landing to pay off the Lannister family's considerable debt to the Iron Bank. Having failed to secure an alliance with Daenerys Targaryen, Euron Greyjoy arrives in King's Landing to make the same deal with Queen Cersei. He offers his Iron Fleet and asks for Cersei's hand in marriage. Cersei accepts Euron's alliance but turns down his marriage proposal. In response, Euron promises to deliver her a priceless gift in the hopes of making her reconsider. At the Citadel, Sam is deep in his studies when he meets Jorah Mormont, who has arrived searching for a cure for grayscale. Despite objections from the Citadel's Archmaester Ebrose, Sam performs a rare and dangerous procedure on Jorah that effectively cures his disease. As Jorah departs to reunite with Daenerys, Sam studies ancient texts for a way to defeat the White Walkers. He learns that there is a massive reserve of dragon glass underneath the Baratheon home of Dragonstone, and alerts Jon to his findings. Dragonstone also happens to be the ancestral home of the Targaryens, and so it is there that Daenerys arrives upon reaching Westeros for the first time since she was an infant. As Daenerys basks in her return to her family home, she also confronts Varys for his years of shifting allegiances. Varys swears an oath to Daenerys, but is threatened with execution if he ever lies to her again. Tyrion then devises a plan for the Unsullied army to capture the Lannister home of Casterly Rock, while Daenerys' Westerosi allies besiege King's Landing. As Grey Worm departs to lead the Unsullied into battle, he and Missandei profess their love for each other. The Unsullied easily capture Casterly Rock, but discover that they had fallen into a trap, as Euron's Iron Fleet destroy their ships, leaving the Unsullied stranded. Meanwhile, Yara leads her Iron Fleet to deliver the Dornish army to siege King's Landing, but on their expedition, Euron's fleet attacks, killing 2 of the Sand Snakes, while taking Yara, Ellaria, and her final Sand Snake daughter Tyene prisoner. Emotionally triggered by the violence, Theon abandons Yara and flees into the sea. Euron delivers his captives to Cersei as his promised gift, finally winning her hand in marriage, while Cersei kills Tyene with the same poison that Ilaria had used to kill Myrcella. In Winterfell, Jon sends Tormund to lead the wildlings back to the Wall to fortify it against the approaching White Walker army. Littlefinger tries to woo Sansa back to his side, but he no longer has any power over her. Despite wanting to rid herself of the scheming Littlefinger for good, Sansa must remain civil with him to keep his Knights of the Vale united to her cause. Jon then receives a letter from Daenerys asking him to meet her at Dragonstone. Despite objections from his loyal advisors, Jon decides to meet with the mysterious Daenerys Targaryen in order to obtain the dragon glass that Sam had written to him about. As Jon departs, he leaves Sansa in charge as Regent of the North and threatens Littlefinger to stay away from his sister. Bran and Meera then arrive in Winterfell, and though Sansa is happy to finally reunite with her brother, she is confused by his newfound title of the Three-Eyed Raven. Meera departs from Bran, who has no emotional reaction to their farewell, leaving Meera to lament that the original Bran has died to become the new Three-Eyed Raven. The Stark family reunion continues when Arya finally arrives in Winterfell. Bran reveals to Arya that he had a vision of her return, and then gives her the Valyrian steel dagger that had previously been used in his own failed assassination attempt. Brienne and Arya then train together as they prepare for the upcoming war, with their fight ending in a draw. But the happiness and peace is threatened to unravel when Littlefinger resumes his scheming ways, and tries to manipulate Sansa and Arya to turn against each other. Jon and Davos then arrive at Dragonstone to meet with Daenerys for the very first time. Jon refuses Daenerys' request to bend the knee and swear fealty to her, instead insisting that she join his cause to protect Westeros from the White Walker invasion. Daenerys is skeptical of the White Walker threat and wants to focus on claiming the Iron Throne, but Tyrion convinces her to at least allow Jon to mine Dragonstone for its dragon glass. When Daenerys finally learns of the defeats her armies have suffered, she begins to question Tyrion's loyalty and counsel. Theon arrives with the surviving Ironborn, broken and defeated. Jon encourages his surrogate brother that they can both honor Ned Stark's legacy, giving Theon the inspiration to rally the Ironborn behind him and set off to rescue Yara. When Daenerys then considers simply flying her dragons to King's Landing and taking it by violent force, Jon advises that she would in turn destroy the city and be seen as the same violent tyrant as her father, the Mad King. Daenerys heeds Jon's advice, but does use her dragons and Dothraki army to attack the Lannister caravan transporting the Tyrell family gold they stole from Highgarden. Jaime and his men are completely overwhelmed by the brutal attack, though Bronn manages to injure Drogon with a strike from a scorpion. Jaime and Bronn narrowly escape the battle with their lives, realizing their army stands no chance against Daenerys' dragons. The surviving Tarly soldiers are captured by Daenerys, and when Randall and his son Dickon refuse to swear fealty to the Targaryen queen, Drogon incinerates them. Tyrion and Davos then sneak into King's Landing, where Tyrion secretly meets with Jaime, asking his brother to convince Cersei to align with Daenerys in the battle against the White Walkers, while promising to bring proof of their existence. As Tyrion and Davos depart, they encounter Gendry, who accompanies them back to Dragonstone. As Tyrion and Varys both lament the recent brutality of Daenerys' actions in the killing of Randall and Dickon, Jon and Daenerys grow closer. Daenerys is impressed by Jon's ability to approach her dragons unharmed, as usually they are hostile to everyone but her. Tyrion announces to Daenerys and Jon's councils his plans to venture north of the Wall to capture a White to bring to Cersei as proof of the White Walker's existence. Jorah Mormont arrives in Dragonstone and emotionally reunites with Daenerys, before agreeing to join Jon and Gendry on the dangerous mission north of the Wall. The trio venture to the Wall, where they reunite with Tormund, who has captured Beric, Thoros, and the Hound. Despite Gendry's warnings not to trust the men, due to his prior bad experiences of them selling him into Melisandre's care, Beric, Thoros, and the Hound declare that they are there to help in the fight against the White Walkers. And so, the team is assembled, with Jon leading Jorah, Tormund, Gendry, Beric, Thoros, and the Hound north of the Wall to capture a White. The journey into the far north proves incredibly dangerous, as Thoros is killed by an undead polar bear. The group then discovers discovers that killing a White Walker destroys all of the whites that they have created, and thus killing the original White Walker, the Night King, could destroy the entire undead army. As Jon's group is attacked by White Walkers, they send Gendry back to the wall to call on Daenerys for help. As Jon's men are surrounded with no hope of survival, Daenerys arrives with her dragons to fight off the White Walker army. As the whites attack, Daenerys gathers Jon's men onto Drogon, while Jon stays behind to aid in their retreat. In the conflict, the Night King manages to kill the dragon Viserion and resurrect it as his own. As Daenerys flees with Jorah, Tormund, Beric the Hound, and her remaining dragons, Jon Snow finds himself surrounded by White Walkers. Benjen Stark then arrives, sacrificing himself to aid his nephew in his escape. Upon their return to Dragonstone, Daenerys agrees to fight the White Walker army after seeing proof of their threat, while Jon pledges his loyalty to his new queen. Daenerys, Jon, and their closest allies then travel to King's Landing to reveal to Cersei a captured White, asking for her help in the fight against White Walkers. Although she at first refuses, Tyrion prevails at ultimately convincing his sister to send reinforcements. But as Jaime prepares to lead the Lannister forces north to join the fight, Cersei reveals that she was actually lying, and that Euron Greyjoy is ready and waiting with an army to wipe out whichever side won in the war between the living and the dead. Jaime is disgusted by his sister and lover's actions, and despite Cersei revealing herself to be pregnant with his child, which they now had the power to raise together publicly, Jaime rebukes Cersei and chooses to ride north and join the fight all by himself. Back in Winterfell, Sansa and Arya reveal that they have been manipulating Littlefinger and expose his treachery to the Lords of the North and the Vale, including his orchestrations of the deaths of Jon and Lysa Arryn, the wrongful death and execution of Ned Stark, and even revealing him as the mystery culprit who sent the assassin to murder the comatose Bran all of those years ago. As Littlefinger pleads for forgiveness and mercy, Arya executes him. At the Citadel, when the Archmaesters refuse to take the White Walker threat seriously, a frustrated Sam steals ancient text and flees with Gilly and Little Sam. Sam and his family arrive in Winterfell, where he and Bran compare their studies and visions. The pair realize that Rhaegar Targaryen hadn't impregnated Lyanna Stark against her will, but they had actually been in love and secretly married. And so Jon Snow is not a bastard child at all, but in fact the true-born heir to the Targaryen throne. This is all unbeknownst to Jon and Daenerys, who on their way to Winterfell profess their romantic feelings for each other and make love, with Daenerys unaware that she is no longer the rightful heir to the Iron Throne, and Jon unaware that he has fallen in love with his own biological aunt. But the inheritance of the Iron Throne could all soon be a moot point, as the Night King uses the undead Viserion to destroy part of the wall, allowing the White Walker army to finally invade the Seven Kingdoms. In Season 8 of Game of Thrones, the disparate heroes and anti-heroes from across Westeros converge in Winterfell to unite against the army of the dead. When Jaime arrives, Bran forgives him for pushing him out of the window and leaving him paralyzed, as it was the action that led them both to become the men they are today. Although Sansa and Daenerys both contemplate killing Jaime for his involvement in the deaths of their respective fathers, Brienne vouches for her old friend and he is allowed to join their fight. As preparations are made to fight the White Walkers, Daenerys teaches Jon how to ride a dragon, leading to the two falling deeper in love. Jon's closest allies are hesitant about their romance as they are fearful of Daenerys' potential to go mad like her father. Complicating their relationship is Sam revealing to Jon the truth about his parentage and his status as the true Targaryen heir. Jon and Daenerys' war council devise a plan to use Bran as bait to lure the Night King into a trap, as he wants to destroy the world and all memory of it, and therefore an all-seeing three-eyed raven must be destroyed as well, with the rest of the forces of the living battling the White Walkers and Whites, and the Night King falling into the trap and separated from his army. Jon and Daenerys would be able to easily ambush him. Theon Greyjoy, having successfully saved Yara from their evil uncle Euron, arrives in King's Landing to aid his his surrogate family in their fight. In repentance for his past actions, Theon volunteers himself to act as Bran's protector during the battle. With the plan set, the various disparate allies prepare for a battle that could be the end of them all. Arya sleeps with her childhood crush Gendry in her first act of human intimacy. Jaime officially knights Brienne, an incredible honor not usually bestowed to women. With Jon wielding the Mormont family's Valyrian steel sword Longclaw, Sam gives his own family's Valyrian steel sword Heartsbane to Jorah, in honor of the mentorship Sam received under Jorah's father, Lord Commander Jeor Mormont. As the Night King's army arrives in Winterfell, Melisandre returns from her exile to magically ignite the Dothraki army's weapons with a flame that will help them against the undead. As Tyrion and Sansa gather the innocent non-combatants to hide in Winterfell's crypts, the battle begins above. Jon and Daenerys ride their dragons to face off against the Night King and the undead Viserion in the skies above Winterfell, as their armies partake in a brutal battle below. The Dothraki are quickly overwhelmed by the dead, who then breach the walls of Winterfell, closing in on Bran's location. In the chaos, Ed is killed, saving his Night's Watch brother and friend Sam. Beric sacrifices himself to save Arya and the Hound, who fight side by side throughout the destruction. The duo encounter Melisandre, who informs Arya that she has had visions of her destiny, and encourages her to not let Beric's sacrifice go in vain. As Jon and Daenerys battle the Night King, they are eventually forced to land their dragons and continue their fight on foot. The Night King raises all of the dead bodies at Winterfell as new loyal wights, including the dead inside the crypts with the unarmed women and children. Stuck in the midst of her antagonistic resurrected army, Daenerys is rescued by her longtime savior Jorah Mormont, who fights off an onslaught of undead forces before suffering fatal injuries and dying in the arms of his queen. The united army of the living is completely overwhelmed, and as the Night King reaches Bran, Jon is blocked by the undead Viserion from implementing the planned trap. Theon and his paltry number of Ironborn are the only things standing between the Night King and Bran. Bran assures Theon that he is a good man, who then heroically dies defending his surrogate brother. As the Night King prepares to kill Bran, it is Arya who comes to her brother's aid, using Littlefinger's Valyrian steel dagger to kill the Night King and destroy his entire undead army. Following the White Walkers' defeat, the survivors celebrate their victory and mourn their fallen friends. Having fulfilled her life's purpose, Melisandre ventures into the cold and takes off a magical necklace that has given her eternal life, rapidly aging her until she ultimately dies. In the battle's aftermath, Daenerys legitimizes Gendry as a true Baratheon and names him Lord of Storm's End. Gendry then romantically proposes to Arya, but she turns him down, feeling she has a greater purpose in life than being the wife of a noble lord. Jaime and Brienne explore their own feelings for each other, leading to the friends having sex. Jon leaves his direwolf ghost in the care of Tormund, who leads his wildlings back north of the Wall, which will now be a safer home in the absence of the White Walker threat. Bronn then arrives in Winterfell on the orders of Cersei to assassinate Tyrion and Jaime, but the brothers convince their old friend to spare their lives with the promise of giving Bronn the former Tyrell home of Highgarden for his allegiance. Jon then reveals to Daenerys that he is in fact the son of Rhaegar Targaryen, and therefore the nephew of Daenerys and the rightful heir to the Iron Throne. Despite this, Jon affirms his loyalty to Daenerys and renounces his claim, promising to keep his lineage a secret from everyone but his sisters. Not trusting Daenerys as her queen and wanting Jon to rule Westeros, Sansa reveals her brother's secret to Tyrion and Varys. Varys begins to fear Daenerys' mental stability and plots to place the rightful heir Jon Snow, whose true name is Aegon Targaryen, on the Iron Throne. Tyrion remains loyal to his queen and informs her of Varys' schemes. In response, Daenerys has Drogon burn Varys alive. Jon and Daenerys' armies then devise their plan to take King's Landing from Cersei. Daenerys and her fleet will travel by sea, while Jon and Davos will lead their army on foot. As the armies depart, Jon says goodbye to his best friend Samwell Tarly, who stays behind in Winterfell with little Sam and Gilly, now pregnant with another baby. Separately, Arya and the Hound travel together to King's Landing on their own revenge missions, with the Hound wanting to murder his evil brother the Mountain, and Arya wanting to cross off the top name on her kill list, Cersei Lannister. Jaime chooses to stay in Winterfell with Brienne to avoid picking sides between the forces fighting for good and his own sister and lover. But when Sansa declares that Daenerys will likely execute Cersei for her crimes, the conflicted Jaime decides to abandon the heartbroken Brienne to return to his toxic true love twin sister. On their way to King's Landing, Daenerys' fleet is attacked by Euron, who destroys Daenerys' ships and uses a scorpion to kill her dragon Rhaegal. As Daenerys' surviving forces reach shore, they realize that Missandei has been taken captive. As Daenerys, Tyrion, Grey Worm, and their forces reconvene with Jon's army and arrive at King's Landing to negotiate Cersei's surrender, the Lannister queen refuses to stand down and taunts Daenerys into battle by ordering the Mountain to execute Missandei. As Daenerys' forces prepare to storm the capital, they manage to apprehend Jaime Lannister. Tyrion chooses to disobey his queen and free his brother, urging Jaime to convince Cersei to stop the fighting and flee to Essos. As Daenerys seeks romantic comfort from Jon before heading into battle, Jon begins to pull away from their intimate relationship, confused about having romantic feelings for his own aunt. And so, as Daenerys flies into battle to take King's Landing, she now feels that no one in Westeros will ever love her, so she must rule with fear. Daenerys and Drogon quickly burn down King's Landing's defenses from the sky, while Jon, Davos, and Grey Worm lead their armies through the city streets, quickly overpowering the Lannister forces. Realizing their defense is now futile, the Lannister forces choose to surrender. Unfortunately, Daenerys is now overtaken by a mad rage, and refuses to adhere to the surrender, and mercilessly begins burning the entire city, killing surrendered soldiers and innocent civilians. Grey Worm leads his army in the streets to follow his queen and take part in the mass slaughtering of King's Landing's defenseless residents. Jon and Davos are disgusted by these actions and order their own men to fall back outside of the city. Meanwhile, Jaime races through the destruction to find and save Cersei. On his way, he encounters Euron and the two engage in a fight to the death. Ultimately, Jaime kills Euron but is severely injured in the process. The Hound and Arya arrive in King's Landing amidst the chaos, but realizing the dangers ahead, the Hound convinces Arya to give up on her plot to kill Cersei out of blind revenge and instead return to the family that loves her. Arya relents and departs the Hound as an unlikely friend, though the Hound remains steadfast in his own quest to kill the Mountain. The Hound finds his brother alongside Cersei and Qyburn as they flee the collapsing Red Keep. In the fight, the reckless Mountain kills Qyburn before the Hound sacrifices himself to ensure his brother dies alongside him. Jaime then finally reunites with Cersei, but the Red Keep's collapse has left them with no way to escape. And so, Jaime comforts his sister and lover as the Red Keep falls and kills them both. In the aftermath, King's Landing is left in destruction. As Daenerys tells her Unsullied and Dothraki armies she has liberated the city and next plans to liberate the world, the rest of her allies are horrified by her actions. Tyrion resigns as Hand of the Queen and is in turn arrested, though he pleads with Jon to kill Daenerys to stop her from any more violence. When Jon confronts Daenerys in the destroyed throne room, his worst fears are realized when Daenerys refuses to stand down. And so, a heartbroken Jon is forced to assassinate his queen. Drogon then melts the Iron Throne and carries his mother back east, where they once lived with such hope. Weeks later, Jon and Tyrion are both prisoners awaiting sentencing for their actions against the Queen. At a council meeting of all the lords and ladies of the Seven Kingdoms, Tyrion convinces them all that Westeros' next ruler should not be decided by inheritance, but instead chosen by the council. They all agree to Tyrion's democratic idea and name the all-seeing Bran as their new king, as according to Tyrion, he has the best story. Tyrion is pardoned of his crimes and named Hand of the King. Bran's small council now includes Davos as the Master of Ships, Brienne as the new Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, the incredibly wealthy Bronn as Master of Coin, and Samwell Tarly as the new Grand Maester, who decides to write a book on everything that has happened, known as the Song of Ice and Fire. Meanwhile, Sansa declares independence and is named Queen of the North. Arya chooses to depart her family for now, wanting to explore the uncharted land lands west of Westeros. Grey Worm and the Unsullied then depart Westeros to venture to Missandei's original home of Noth, and Jon Snow is sentenced to join the Night's Watch once again. Returning to the Wall, Jon reunites with Tormund Ghost and the Wildlings. Together they venture north of the Wall, where the harsh winter is finally thawing into a dream of spring.